Okay, fine, let me start. Good day to one and all. This is Dr. Sivaraman of iknowindices.com. So all are anxiously waiting for the ECB event to happen so that they'll be able to get the clarity with regard to euro, and also that could act as a trigger on other currencies, whether the currencies are going to make the USD weakening move or the USD strengthening move. This is what every time we envisage before the prime data release. And today, by 11:45 GMT, now it is 11 GMT, in another 45 minutes, the ECB interest rate decision will be given. Then 12:30 GMT, from now, another 1 hour and 30 minutes, the ECB press conference is going to happen. And there, based on the ECB president talk, people are going to give attributes, and based on that, you could come across some upward and the downward moves in the market. So ultimately, we need to identify how exactly the market is going to behave for this particular event. Now, I'll be doing the live market analysis using my forecast as one of the tools. Then besides, we will also do the market reading as another tool to fine-tune the forecast. Then we use the trading strategy. In the event if the market goes against our expectations, what are the measures we take in order to limit the risk and maximize the profit? So these are all the aspects I'm going to explain in 30 minutes time frame. So 11 to 11:30 GMT, I'll be giving the ECB event, how exactly which is going to give an impact over that of the market. And I'll also give the trade calls, and you can just do it in a demo trading platform and find out the result. And I was supposed to give the post-event a 15 minutes recall of the results and the review. But unfortunately, I got another assignment, I got another work to take care. So I was not in a position to come for that particular webinar, so I canceled it. But still, I'll be coming tomorrow during that of the Asian session and do the review of the entire forecast I have given it for this week. At the time, I'll explain what has happened after that of the ECB press conference and why that particular move has happened. I'll explain to you. Now let us see the forecast part. So today's forecast, 2nd of June, based on my forecast algorithm, they are expected to make a swing and slide during that of the Japanese session, and then swing and rise during that of the European and the US session. So the European session, we are in the European session now. By 11:30, it gets over by 13 GMT. So 11:45, the interest rate announcement will be there. Mostly people are expecting it is going to be unchanged. And 12:30 GMT, the ECB press conference is there. The ECB president is expected to create the mood for the market, and people could simply give attribute as the hawkish and the dovish, and accordingly, based on his speech and the question answers, the people are going to react in the market. That means the banks are primarily going to make the whipsaw moves in the market, and traders are going to become astonished. So during every event, you come across the market make very quick upward, very quick downward move, and finally settle with it of a specific type of move. And so the whipsaw moves will invariably give confusion to that of the traders, whether to do a buy and sell trade or a sell and buy trade. And many people say that wait for the waves to get settled, then later on enter into the market. But if you enter into the market after all the quick moves, then you find that market is not making any move on the upside or on the downside. So we get struck. So people are interested in making quick money on that of the spikes, but they are afraid whether to do a buy and sell trade or a sell and buy trade. And if you look into that market now, Euro and GBP are showing positive net change. and Australian dollar, which is also a numerator currency, which is showing negative net change. Now, with regard to the denominator currency, USDN and USDCHF are showing negative net change. But Canadian dollar, which is a commodity pair, showing positive net change. So the majors are showing the USD weakening move, but the commodity pairs are showing the USD gaining move. So this is how the players make the contrarian moves in the market. And people need to understand why they are making such contrarian moves, because primarily they make such moves to handle the crosses. Before the big event, people may not be interested in taking position in the case of the majors. So at that time, they will also think that, okay, the majors might be affected because of the event, whether it is USD positive or USD negative or Euro positive or Euro negative, but the crosses are going to be independent. So that is what they assume and take the positions in the crosses, like the yen crosses or commodity crosses or whatever it is. But during that of the event, the players make similar such contrarian moves and finally make the USD gaining or the USD weakening move. And at that spike time, we should be in the market. Only then we will be able to see the profit. Otherwise, we can simply say that I have given a good call that do buy and sell trade, you would have earned about 150 pips. And you can just tell all those things. But committing the position, we need to have a specific understanding. So what is more important in the market? What is more important in the market is understanding the market event. How exactly we can understand the market event? So for that, we need to have a specific type of reading the intentions of the players. In order to read the intentions of the players, what we do is we do the market reading by using the initial lows and the highs. They are set around 3:30 GMT, and that initial low and the high we take into consideration and compare it to that of the current market levels. Thereby, we will be able to find what the intention is. Now, in the case of euro, the low was 1.1184 and the high was 1.1214 at the time of 3:30 GMT today during the Japanese session. But now you find, but here it is showing wrongly 1.1114. Actually, 1.1184 was the today's initial low. And the high 1.1214, they breached and went up to 1.1220 and come down. But still, they are not breached the low, not gone below. So it shows that they are simply making a consolidation, and it is not more than 40 pips for the spread to take any position. So what they are supposed to do, or what they could do, they will make a false move before that of the data release and then make the intentional move. Always it is the case with every data release. And during that of the data release, exactly 5 minutes before or 2 minutes before the data release, they quickly gain the level, then understand after the data they wanted to make a drop. When they quickly drop, as if everything going to end, the world is going to come to an end. That is how they make a quick drop. Then immediately after the data, they will spike up. So they create the market fear and then act against that of the traders. When they assume that the traders assume that the market is going to fall, but they will gain the level. The traders assume that the market is going to be bullish after a gain, but suddenly they will make a drop. So that we need to understand that how cunningly they make the false move before that of the intentional move. If we follow the false move, because we need to use the tick chart to understand the false move. But instead, if you look into that of the live market code page, you'll be able to see the quick price action on the downside. Then that will indicate that the players want to gain the levels. So if that is the case, what you need to do is when they make a drop and not breaching the low and staying below, staying around that of the low, not breaching the low, during that of the false move, we can take a buy, then they will gain the level. And similarly, if they go up to that of the high and not breach the initial high, but not the new high, initial high, for during that of the event, then they are going to drop it. So that way you can easily identify. The focus says that they are expected to gain the level. Now we have to fine tune our entry. How? Based on the false move. So they are expected to make a downward false move before making a rise after that of the event. I do not know what Raghi is going to speak, but I can tell you that the players are going to gain the levels in the market, because one of the confirmation is yesterday they created all the bearish field and dropped the levels in the case of GBP mainly. And you know very well, GBP is the currency. They use it in order to create the market sentiment. So they made all the drop in the case of GBP from 1.47 to 1.44 and below, which has created enough bearish field for the long holders to liquidate their long positions. So that is how they liquidated the long position yesterday. And then what they have done today, they simply opened the market above that of the yesterday's initial low, start gaining the level and breached the initial high, and they are staying comfortably over there. So yesterday they made the downward move as a false move before that of the events which are going to be today as well as tomorrow. And you know, today ECB press conference is a prime event. Then secondly, tomorrow non-farm payroll. And that is going to be another big event for the market players to make big moves in the market. And so for that, they made beforehand all the anticlimax, all the downward move. And once the anticlimax is on the downside, the climax will be on the upside. So which clearly indicate that they intend to make the gain after inducing all the long holders to liquidate the long positions in distress condition. When the traders liquidate the long position in distress condition out of uncertainty, who are the buyers? The players bought all those things near that of the low. And then today, they are going to gain the level using the ECB press conference as a trigger and gain quickly the levels during the European as well as US sessions and book profit of their positions. And many of the traders, what they have thought that it's going to be the US dollar sentiment weak. So many have liquidated the long in order to earn back the last money. They have also taken the sell positions, waiting for the event to happen afterwards. When the market dropped, they wanted to book profit. So when such traders, they trade without a stop, then the market spikes up. Another alternative for them, because they have not kept their stop, the another alternative is average the position and they exit out of the position. So they try to take another sell, but the players continue to gain and induce them to take another sell. So when the traders continue to take sell position during the rise, they find later on that they have taken more position beyond their capabilities and capacity to hold, and that creates a margin fear. So this is of every time the players trap the traders, but still predominant of the traders, they believe that they are capable of reading the intentions of the players by looking to that of the technicals and fundamentals, and later on they find whatever they earned in small way, they lose it in a big way during the event time. So we need to understand how to read the intentions of the players when they are making such whipsaw moves in the market. For that, we need to use the market reading, find out where exactly they are. In the case of GBP, below what they have set, 1.4407, during that of Japanese session, still they are not breached, they are holding above, and they went above that of 1.4442 up to that of 1.4468 and came down. So briefly made an upward stop and come down, but still not breached the low. So they could make a dip as a false move up to that of the low or if needed, they may make a brief downward stop. And if there are more long positions in the market, and that could be a downward stop and before making a rise. Otherwise, it might be a false move up to that of the low and reverse quickly in the market. Then in the case of yen, 108.84 is the low which has not been breached. 109.57 is the high which is also not breached. So they are expected to, they made the downward move in the case of USD yen to give the trigger for euro and GBP to gain today. Yesterday they went up in the case of yen up to 111, and from there they made the drop and quickly made a downward move in order to induce euro and GBP to go up. And so they are expected to consolidate here, and tomorrow it is going to be yen's day, and they are expected to gain big the levels in the case of USD yen after that of the non-farm payroll, along with that of euro and GBP. And CHF, they are just making a consolidation, and they just breached the low of 98.67 to 59, and they are holding around that of 98.69. Just made a brief downward stop and then holding below that, above that of the initial low, but not breached the high. So they are expected to make a small consolidation here. In the case of Canadian dollar, 1.3062 is the low. They just breached it, came down to 1.3056, and the high was 1.3083. They just breached and went up to 1.3115 and holding above. As I told you that in the case of commodity pairs, they are making the USD gaining move by gaining more levels in the case of USD CAD, dropping in the case of Australian dollar, and they are expected to make a brief upward stop, and in the case of Canadian dollar, and then start making a downward move as the USD weakening move. In the case of Australian dollar, 72.28 is the low. They just breached the low and formed a 72.08, and then they are holding around 72.17 but not breached the low what they newly formed during start of the European session. And 72.69 is the high which is also not breached. They are expected to slowly gain the levels in the case of Australian dollar as well. So we have done the market reading by finding out after setting the initial lows on the highs, what sort of moves they are doing it. They have just made a brief upward stop in the case of euro and GBP, and they're just consolidating in the case of USD yen, and made a brief downward stop in the case of CHF, and they have made an upward as well as the downward stop in the case of Canadian dollar, and in the case of Australian dollar, they have brief downward stop and holding. So when they made a brief downward stop and hold for more than 30 minutes, like 72.15 is there and 72.28 is a low. They just breached and formed 72.08 as a low, but they are not gone above 72.28 for more than 30 minutes. And such quick downward move and holding below that is, and not breaching the new low every 30 minutes indicate it is an extended downward move for 2 hours. Afterwards, they wanted to gain the level. So soon after that of the ECB interest rate decision and that of the ECB press conference, they wanted to gain the levels. In the case of Australian dollar, in the case of Canadian dollar, they are expected to make, they are just made the upward stop and still holding above, but slowly USD CAD might make the downward move. Afterwards, they might be holding above that of the initial high for some time when others are making USD weakening move. And later on, Canadian dollar is expected to participate. CHF, they are expected to make a brief consolidation here without making much of a move. And in the case of yen, also they are expected to hold, make small upward and then downward move. But euro and GBP, they are expected to make an upward spike. So you have to find out what currencies we have to choose. So I have given the trade call for these currencies. In the case of euro, 1.1184 was the initial high. In the even if they make a brief downward stop, and because we are around 11.20 just now, and you can take a position around 12.25 or 12.30 GMT, when they make a pre-false move on the downside. At the time when they show level 1.1176 or 84 or 87 and not breaching that particular level for about 5-10 minutes, immediately take a buy. Then keep the hedge order 1.1130 in order to limit the risk about 35 to 40 pips, and keep an exit of 1.1255. You can do it in a demo trading platform and see how it works. And this is made based on the market trading technique. Then GBP 1.4415, you can keep the buy limit order with 1.4566 as the exit and 1.4370 as the hedge order. Then in the case of Australian dollar 72.05, you can keep a buy limit order because they could make a brief downward dip before going up. Otherwise, you can modify it to 72.08, and if they make a false dip and then go up, then you can keep about 70-75 pips upward limit and your hedge order 40 pips below. In the case of yen, they could make only a consolidation between the low and the high. They may make a brief downward stop and below that of 108.84, and then an upward stop and above that of the high. That is what they are expected to do, or how they have done it in the case of Canadian dollar, and consolidate here. So when they make a brief downward stop and an upward stop and try to keep the limit order, they will get filled. But still, you keep the hedge order to limit the risk. So these are all the trade calls I have given. If you've got any questions, you can ask me in the question answer window. I'll answer those questions. We have another 8 minutes to go. If you're able to understand my calls, how they are making the dip, you can find in the case of euro and just making a firming up. They are handling the crosses now by making such move, especially euro GBP cross. They are just making a small dip in order to gain more. But if you look into the of the euro, which came down to 1.1089 and then come up. Probably I'll show the other slide. Okay, these are all the levels. They have just come down, and after coming here, they come up to 1.12 now. And in the case of yen, GBP, they came down to 43.60, and then they are expected to go up. So this is how they just make the upward and the downward move. So we need to note down the lows and the highs they are setting down on each day and try to compare it. You will be able to really understand they are just forming up GBP now, quickly making a dip in the case of euro because they wanted to handle euro GBP cross. As I told you, before that of the event, they will be handling the crosses more. So if you got any question, kindly ask me. I'll answer those questions. Always try to calmly watch the event to happen. That they will make definitely a false move before that of the event and make an intentional move after that of the event. Very rarely they make a false move after the event when there is uncertainty with regard to 2-3 data release. If 2-3 data are being released, then they will wait for the interpretations to come from that of the technical analyst and the fundamental analyst. They give the interpretation quickly in the market, and after that of the interpretation, the traders commit positions. So when the traders say that, okay, it is going to be the USD gaining move, when the analysts say that the traders take sell positions in euro and GBP, and later on the players give some other excuse and start gaining the levels in the case of euro and GBP, and at that time they will say, no, this is a different type of interpretation, or tomorrow event is now being taken into consideration, today's event is discounted. They give a different interpretation for that, and it will all appear as if they are all convincing, but they are all released to convince you for a short moment. And they know very well the memory of the traders is very, very short. So it is similar to that of the voters' sentiment. So the traders have got a very short memory, and they know very well that the players created the market sentiment and act against it of the traders. But again, they will just fall victim and presume that the event is going to tell the truth or the fundamental aspect of the currencies. But the players are here to make opposite to that of the sentiment what they have created. No question is coming forward. So you can make a note of it. These are all the calls I made, and you can try it in a demo trading platform, and you can tell me tomorrow during the Asian session live market analysis what happened to these positions, so that if you try to follow me tomorrow also for that of the non-farm payroll, I'll give the call. The pre-event, I'll give the call, and again post-event, I will review the call and show the results of the trades, so that you will be able to understand what I am telling is actually happening in the market. It's not that I'm against the bank or anybody, but I want you to directly understand what the opponents are doing, rather than indirectly trying to find out what the opponents are doing. Because a direct way will always give you the right picture about the market. So if there are any question, you can ask me. Otherwise, I'll try to conclude the webinar. So they are expected to gain the levels after that of the event from 12:30 GMT up to 13 GMT, and make a small dip between the gap time between 13 and 13:30 GMT before the start of the US session. They are expected to make a small dip and then start gaining the levels during the US session. So this is what going to happen. 11:45, the interest rate decision is going to be unchanged, and the interest rate, the ECB press conference is going to be the event, and soon after the conference starts, they could gain the levels in the case of euro, and people might be surprised. They would have just said that good morning to everybody, but they would have gained the levels in the market. This is what they do every time, and they will simply say the way in which the good morning was expressed, which was hawkish. I'm not joking, it is a fact. Okay. Okay. So I take this opportunity to thank FX Trade for the facilities provided to present the webinar, and I'll give more and more of these spike trade calls before and after that of the events. Then you can understand that we need not be afraid of such volatile moves and perceive them as great trading opportunities. So we need not keep away or wait for the waves to settle and then try to take bath in the sea. But that is not going to happen. Every time before and after the event, the market is going to be very volatile, but we have to identify that as great trading opportunity. Within a matter of about 15-30 minutes, we will be able to capture about 50-100 pips. And that is possible provided you are able to read the intentions of the players, not by looking into the charts, by looking into the price action, how they are doing a false move before the data and an intentional move after the data. So wish you all happy trading. Try to take the positions in a demo trading platform. We will review the results by tomorrow. Thank you one and all. Wish you all happy trading. See you tomorrow for the weekend. I'll come up with the next spike trade call before and after that of the non-farm payroll. And before that, I will try to review the forecast, what I had given it on Monday, 30th of May. I gave the forecast for this particular week, and I will try to review the forecast what I have given it on Monday by tomorrow during that of the Asian session, so that you will be able to understand how the forecast is dependable and which is actually a time-based forecast. Thank you one and all. See you tomorrow.